The class is being recorded for the purposes of those people who will not be able to join us because of issues. So many issues of school fees. We have issues of, there are those who are in hospital. There are those who are traveling. Today is on a flight. Those who are taking care of
Good morning.
Their loved ones and so on and so forth. And I'm very happy that this class is not on Tuesday. It should be on a Valentine's Day. Now, last week we did a class, and what were we learning last week? Were we looking at somebody wants to speak?
Mwalimu, excuse?
Yes.
Yes. Mwalimu, you are kind of breaking. I can't get you clearly.
Who are you?
I'm Shamala.
Shamala, are you sure that I'm breaking? Even now I am breaking.
Oh, now it's okay. Maybe it's my network.
Most probably, because I started by saying hi. Let's ask Angot. Angot, is it Angot? Can you hear me?
Hello, good morning, sir. Yes, you are breaking. I can't hear from my side too.
The problem might be maybe your network. But to me, I can hear you clearly. And I, good morning.
Morning.
How is me? How is my voice? Am I breaking?
Good morning, sir. I can hear you.
At times you're breaking.
Yeah. Or we can switch to big blue button. You know, we can do that. Can we switch to that?
It's now okay, Mwalimu. Just carry on. Maybe we should check on our internet connections.
Thank you, Shamala. Now, I want to proceed from where we stopped. Last week, we did topic 4, and we were looking at what we call the strategic activities of public relations. There are so many. We also looked at, if I can remember very well, we looked at planning PR programs. And we said that there is a 6-point planning model, and we called it SOMBA. That is situation, objectives, media, public, and analysis. I know you can remember that. And we said whenever there is a crisis, we can, not whenever we have a crisis, we can use the SOMBA or SOMBA SOMPA or something like that. You remember that planning model. I want you to go and look at it and also think of a situation when we can apply that particular formula when we are planning a PR program. Now, allow me, I want to share my screen. I want to share my screen, hope it can be seen. Today we are covering topic 5, and today we are going to look at corporate social responsibility. Today we are going to look at corporate social responsibility. And corporate social responsibility, if you remember very well, last week when we were looking at the strategic activities of public relations, we also touched on corporate social responsibility. And we said that corporate social responsibility is giving back to the community what it deserves. That you as an organization, you are giving back to the community. You're not just there to to benefit from the community, but you are there also to give back to the community. For example, if you are an organization and you have established yourself in a certain community, then you must ensure that at least develop the community. Please hire the people from the community. Please make sure that the infrastructures are good. Ensure maybe, for example, you make sure that the sanitation, or you make sure that there is availability of water, is availability of light, is electricity, and so on and so forth. That is giving back to the community, like you're telling them, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to operate in this environment. And this is what we are giving back to you as a token of appreciation. So when you talk about CSR, CSR is an organization's obligation and to maximize positive stakeholders' benefit while minimizing the negative effect of its action. So this idea of CSR, it spans from the fact that organization occupies large part of the society, and they are not only responsible to their shareholders, but also responsible to the community in general, just like we have said. So in other words, we are saying that organizations do not always exist to make profit. Okay, we know that organizations, their key goal is to ensure that they make profit and they satisfy customers' requirement profitably. But now, in other words, we are saying organizations do not only exist to make profit, but also to improve the environment and the life of other stakeholders. Who are these stakeholders? Stakeholders can be the community. Stakeholders can be the suppliers. It can be what we call the publics that are interacting with the organization, either directly or indirectly. Like, for example, if you're an organization, you make sure that you give back even to your customers or to your employees. When you hear that an organization has increased the salary of its employees, it is doing what is called corporate social responsibility. When you hear that it has promoted some people, it is corporate social responsibility, because these people are groups, they are groups of people that interact with an organization either directly or indirectly. So organizations do not only exist to make profit, but they also exist to do what? To improve the environment and life of other stakeholders. And the individual who lives will be affected either positively or negatively by the operations of the business. We very know well that, for example, if you start an industry in a certain community, it is either that industry is going to affect the community negatively or positively. Like, for example, emissions of chemicals in the air and also what we call in the waters. It is negatively affecting the community. The community is using that water, and you is using that water that whereby the chemicals of the companies are taken by the waters. And so then you'll be affecting the community negatively. So corporate social responsibility has gained an increasingly high profile in recent years. And we are saying that CSR can be identified as the way in which a business seeks to align its values and behaviors with those of various stakeholders. The stakeholders of business include the employees. We've talked about the publics of public relations. They include customers, they include the government. They also include interest groups such as environmental groups. For example, when you talk about NEMA, NEMA is there to ensure that the environment is kept clean. You've heard of various organizations being accused of products that are not good for consumption by maybe, for example, a company like Cofec. There was once a brand, an Unga brand, that was put on notice by Cofec because customers complained that they would see maggots in that particular Unga brand. I'm not going to mention the brand because some people might end up saying that hatutanunua your unga tena. That unga is still in the market, but it was put in notice on notice by COFEC because customers complained so bitterly that the unga had got live maggots. You know what maggots are, eh? And you know when you consume a flour that has got maggot, then you must be ready to dance to the tune. So then we are saying that these are environmental groups. We have NEMA, we have other groups, health groups like COFEC and so on. We also have KEBS. KEBS is there to ensure that whatever products you manufacture are to the standard, to the international standard that is required. And wider societal interest on whom the operations of the business may have an impact. Often, it can be difficult balancing act of a business to try effectively consider the perceived needs of these often disparate groups of stakeholders. And some companies appear much more successful in this regard than others. That's according to Christine AM 2009. So let's look at the concept of social responsibility, corporate social responsibilities. We are saying that companies are not the state, that they are not there to provide services and facilities which should be properly be provided by the welfare agencies and paid out of taxation. So companies are not just there to provide you with facilities. Of course, we pay taxes to the government, and we of course want the government to do some things for us. For example, it is the right of every individual to enjoy the services of the government. Like, for example, if there is what we call free primary school education, then it is a right for every Kenyan. It is a right for every Kenyan to have education, and so on and so forth. So it is not that the organization is there to do what the government should do. It does that out of a goodwill, out of free will. Yani hiyo kampuni imeamua, this is what we are going to do to the community. Companies are part of the society, that's number one, in which they operate, because this society is the one that comes to buy the product of the company. It is the one that most of the time you'll find that this company, the people working there are people around. That is the community. Companies are part of the society in which they operate, and they need to consider their corporate behaviors. As a company, consider your corporate behaviors, how you are behaving as part of your role in the society. The impact which businesses have in the community in which they operate come in different levels. Number one, the most basic level, a company must fulfill what we call legal requirements. It must pay taxes. It is primary, the most basic level. Any organization existing in this world must pay taxes. Whether you are in US, whether you are in Kenya, whether you are in Australia, wherever you are, the legal requirement is that that company must pay taxes. But two, or at level 2, we are saying that the company takes account of its reasonability as an organization and consider any negative effect it may have. For example, if you're going to start a business, maybe a fertilizer manufacturing business, you must consider the health of the community around. If you're going to start a business of, say, for example, manufacturing what we call chemicals. You know, there are various chemicals, and chemicals are used for various purposes. For example, you're going to manufacturing what we call washing detergent, like soapless detergent and tablet soaps, and so on and so forth. Then you must consider the health of the community around you. For example, we are being told what the potential effect of the company existence, process, and product on the environment. Because if you affect the environment, you're actually telling us the community is affected. There was a company a few years back in Ukambani that was closed down. It was an Asian company. It used to manufacture lead. You know, lead is chemical. And after some few years, the community started doing what we call reaping the fruits of this particular company. Very bitter fruits. For example, when you manufacture lead, you are releasing chemical into the air. And when you release chemical into the air, the rains that comes from the air or from above are chemical rains. So it has started affecting people. People would breathe lead chemicals, started breathing in lead chemicals. The rain that came, it affected the crops, including what we call the grass. The cows were feeding on those grasses. Rain was not good because some people use or drink rainwater, or they harvest rainwater. And people were so much affected, and they were so much affected to an extent, some of them died. So the company found itself in a limelight because it was in the media. That whose microphone is on. Can we switch it off or I kick you out? It is prudent of you to make sure that you switch off your microphone. I'll be kicking any person who switches on his microphone because this is a wastage of time. Now we are saying that this company was in the limelight and the media featured this particular company. People had died, so many people had died because they got cancer. You would see even the cows, the meat there is not good for consumption. The food that is planted there is not doing well. It is already affected. And so the whole community is affected by this Asian company. People were in the court, they wanted the justice to be done, and so on and so on and so forth. So in other words, whenever you start a company, you must seek to reduce your effect as far as possible by setting criteria for its location or by setting control on the safety of the product so as to avoid misuse. A company operating at this level is likely to act in the spirit rather than simply to the letter of the law, and it's more likely to anticipate trends in public awareness. So in other words, we are also saying that be very careful when you start a company, because the community, you exist there because of the community. By the way, that company that I was giving you an example, it was closed down. Why was it closed down? Because of the community. So if you do something bad to the community will make sure that they close you down. Another day, there was a time we had some people, I don't know from which, but it's from Central. There is somebody who had said that he's going to open a mortuary. Katikati ya, inaitwa namna gani? Katikati ya kiwanja, not katikati ya community. Unaamua ya kwamba utafungua mortuary pale. People went on strike and they said, we don't want a mortuary here. If you go to YouTube, you will see such a story. Somebody just decides from nowhere in this community, the whole of this land, I'm going to build a mortuary. And people said, no, we don't want mortuary. Somewhere in Central Kenya. If you can Google, you can go to the YouTube and you will see that story. Because people have refused. If people refuse you to do or to conduct a business or to start a factory in their community, my friend, you cannot thrive. You will be fighting a losing battle. So the community operating at level 3 is less common, and this type of organization sees itself as having a responsibility for health, for a healthy society, and it accepts the job of helping to remove or alleviate problems in the society. There are those organizations that operate in a community, and the reason why they are operating is to help improve the society's life. Maybe the level of education of these guys is very low, so they want to lift that level. Number two, it can be, for example, this community does not have health facilities, so the organization is operating there to ensure that you have health facilities. Or maybe the road infrastructure is very poor. Or maybe, for example, it's less developed or not developed at all. So they want to develop that particular community, and so on and so forth. So then we come to importance of CSR strategies or CSR activities. Why then do we have CSR activities, corporate social responsibility strategies or activities? Number one, the reason as to why we have CSR is to improve the relationship with stakeholders. That's why you will find an organization like Dettol Heartrun. You know Dettol Heartrun, eh? Dettol Heartrun is a CSR activity that is carried by Dettol, and the moment it is there, you find that there are so many people that comes in. There are so many people or many companies that comes in to support it. You'll find a company like Safaricom. You'll find a company like Centum Investment. You'll find a company, many companies coming to join hand with Dettol so that they can help kids who have got what we call problems with heart, so that they can raise money to go for these kids to get what we call good treatment abroad. That one, whenever they do that, they're improving their relationship with other stakeholders. They're improving the relationship with the community. They're improving the relationship with other organizations. So that is why CSR strategy is there. Number two is to attract investors. Once we have CSR activity, we tend to attract investors. For example, think of an organization like Equity. When we have a program like Equity Wings to Fly, just know that investor number one is the government. Anytime they are launching this program, you'll find the government is there. It's supporting what Equity Wings to Fly is doing. You'll find a company like Safaricom. You'll find a company like, for example, so many companies, big companies supporting this particular CSR activity. So the moment we start our CSR activity, we are trying to attract investors. And this refers to drawing the attention of investors through CSR activities. So according to the study conducted by McKinsey & Co. and World Bank, 3/4 of stakeholders considers non-financial performance as important as financial performance. No, considers non-financial performance as important as financial performance while evaluating the most suitable enterprise for investment. That whenever if you are an investor, if you want to invest in a certain organization, you will look at its financial performance. You cannot just go and invest in an organization that you know very well, its financial performance is very low or it's very down. We have some companies that are not doing well here in Kenya, and you cannot go and invest with them. You may end up losing. Number three, we are saying it is improving financial performance, and this refers to enhancing the financial performance of an enterprise through CSR activities. Again, according to this guy by the name McKinsey & Co., it shows that investors are avoiding enterprises with poor CSR records. For example, if you have had a poor CSR record, nobody would want to invest with you. Nobody will come to say, you have an activity, you have a CSR activity, let us join hands. You will never see big companies coming to invest with you because already you have a very poor CSR record. Number two, improving public credibility. So the moment you do a CSR activity, you are improving the credibility of your organization to the public. For example, when you see this particular organization called Total Heart Run, number one, if it is supporting this particular CSR activity, you tend to believe in their products, you tend to believe in their services, you tend to believe in them, because how comes big companies are doing what? Are joining hands with Dettol. That means Dettol is a very it's a good quality product. It's a high quality product. We cannot have a company like Safaricom. We cannot have a very big company like Centum. We cannot have big company like, say, for example, Absa Bank supporting Dettol, and you tell me that Dettol offers poor quality product. No. So then we can say that improves public credibility. Number five, it utilizes the resources effectively. When we talk about CSR, we are saying that it utilizes what we call resources effectively. And this refers to the optimum usage of scarce resources. For example, you'll find that CSR practices may help in using the resources of the society in an effective manner, minimize cost and wastage. For example, a company involving itself in activities, raise awareness about using the resources effectively and efficiently. When, for example, you join hands and you say, we are going to plant 1 million trees in Ruiru or 1 million trees in Kenya, then you are using the resources that are very, 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 very minimal, using the resources effectively. Then apart from the advantages, or apart from these reasons why organizations engages themselves in CSR activities, then we also have challenges. You also have challenges that are faced by organizations when implementing a CSR activity. And this, some of the challenges is lack of transparencies. Lack of transparencies. Lack of transparency simply means we cannot clearly tell what the CSR activity is all about. So after you raise the money, where are you going to take the money? This imposes a major hindrance in the authentic implementation of CSR activities or programs. So when enterprises do not disclose the information regarding the CSR program and funds allocated to implement this program, then you find that it becomes an issue of transparency. You must be able to tell the public CSR activities, we are raising money so that we can do what? We can take the less fortunate kids to study abroad or to have quality education. Transparency is required in the following areas. Number one, the codes of conduct. Codes of conduct includes workers' rights, environmental protection. Number two, management standards. This includes integrating social and environmental aspects of an enterprise. Number three, we have evaluation, which involves internal reporting of CSR activities by an enterprise. Number two, we are saying another challenge is lack of community participation. As you may come up with a CSR activity, and you find that no one wants to join you. Community haina story na wewe. This hinders the prospect of CSR activities. Many countries, for example, have less knowledge of CSR, and therefore it leads to lack of interest in communities to participate with enterprises in the CSR activities. For example, in a case of Kenya, organizations do not have adequate understanding of CSR activities. For example, some of you have just had CSR. Umesikia tu jina CSR leo. We can classify you into that category. After this class, we will not be classifying you as the category of lack of community participation. At the end of this class, knowing what CSR is. So in Kenya, you find that many people not know what CSR is all about. When you tell them to join hands with a certain organization to raise funds, they will not do it because they don't understand. And it can also be they lack tools, they lack resources, they are not committed at all. We also have a lack of non-governmental organizations. When you talk about lack of non-governmental organization, it leads to lack of CSR activities because we have very few, we very much know that organizations that engages themselves into CSR activities are non-governmental or NGOs. So we have very few NGOs in our country, and therefore you find that CSR activities are very few. Like we can mention a few CSR activities. And most of the CSR activities, you find that they are usually done by big companies. Like for example, Safaricom, it has a myriad of CSR activities because it is doing well in the market. If you go to a company like EABL, East African Breweries Limited, it has a myriad of CSR activities because it is doing well even in the market. Then we also have lack of guidelines, and this implies that many countries do not have a clear guidelines related to CSR activities. As a result, the enterprise lacks proper direction to follow CSR practices. On the other hand, you find that enterprises do not measure and evaluate the CSR activities if no proper guidelines are defined. So there are people who just engage themselves into CSR activities or companies, but they do not have proper guidelines. Number next is narrow view towards CSR initiatives. And this refers to the limited perception of an enterprise towards CSR activities. Also, we also have importance to visibility factor. And this implies that sometimes NGO involves themselves in the CSR program to gain the media attention, but they fail to achieve the goals at the grassroots level. And there are some organizations you find that they are only engaging themselves into a CSR activity simply because they just want to have media visibility. But when you ask them what was the reason for CSR activity, they might not tell you. So importance to visibility factors. And number last, we can say it's lack of budget. And this poses a very major problem because if you don't have a budget for your CSR activity, then it simply means you may end up spending more or spending less. So this poses a major constraint for enterprises that wish to practice CSR activities. CSR activities, they require a lot of money. Like for example, think of a CSR activity like the Ndakaine Marathon. You know, the Ndakaine Marathon was there so that money can be raised so that that marathon, so the Ndakaine Dam, I think it can be fenced, something like that. And you realize that it required a lot of money. Arranging such a marathon, inviting Kenyan runners who are very good at running, and ensuring that the person who becomes the first person or the person who leads in the race is awarded something. It's very expensive. Inviting media to come and cover the Ndakaine Marathon, involving the whole country, apart from so you realize that when you talk about the Ndakaine Marathon, you find that it spent a lot of money. But one, bearing in mind that the media was there, covering it live from 6 a.m. around 11 a.m., almost 5 hours. so on and so forth. The stakeholders that were called and take place or help in the CSR activity, or sponsor the CSR activity. You can imagine, CSR activity requires a budget. And if you don't have a budget, then it means that you might end up spending a lot of money or not spending a lot of money. From there, we have what we call ethical implications. Some ethical implications that comes with CSR. Number one is what we call the motive. And this one is according, the ethical implications are, if you can read Frank Jeffkins, Daniel Yard, in this book I keep on referring in this particular lesson, you're going to see this ethical implication. Number one is the motive. Motive simply means, why are you conducting? What is the reason behind you conducting a CSR? What is the reason? So I will go through it very fast. We are saying that in looking at why companies should, at why companies shoulder their responsibilities, society, the importance of motive depends to a great extent upon the individual points of view. However, the importance of public opinion and the maintenance of stakeholders' relationship might lead us to conclude that the perceived motivation of a company is vital to that particular company, which is seen using philanthropy as a cloak to hide misdeeds or a way of buying itself out of regulatory control. Sometimes you find that some companies will involve themselves to a CSR activity to try as much as possible, hide their tarnished image, or to try as much as possible, whitewash the bad image, and so on and so forth. So sometimes people, organizations engage even in CSR activities, hide their bad deeds. Like, for example, when you know you have as a person, you have done a mistake or you have done wrong to someone, and this person doesn't know. So you try to treat him nicely to show him how good you are, but you are doing something behind his back. So that I don't know why, but to maintain that relationship. The same case can happen, this particular CSR activities. Organization can do what we call, can engage themselves into CSR activities to hide their bad deeds. The number two ethical implication is what we call susceptible targets. And this may be to do with the age of the target public and recognition that young children and the elderly need special consideration. For example, sponsorship of events for charitable purposes might be aimed at school children. If the child is expected to pester parents to make a necessary purchase, or a competitive element is introduced which favors children from well-off families, the ethical wisdom of the company may be questioned. For example, when you talk about susceptible targets, we are saying this, that whenever you come up with a CSR activity, there are those CSR activities that huyo mwenye microphone yake iko on. Can you switch it off? So we are saying that there are those particular CSR activities that are not inclusive. They don't include every part or all people in the community. For example, poor families and rich families. For example, you'll find that for you to engage yourself into, or for you to be considered for a CSR activity, you must do something that requires money. For example, you might find something like for you to register for a CSR activity, the children must give 5,000 shillings as a registration fee. What about that person who cannot be able to afford 5,000 shillings? It simply means that those who can afford 5,000 shillings will be the one considered for a CSR activity. So in other words, these are called susceptible targets. So whenever you are coming up with a CSR activity, let it be all inclusive. Let it include all the people. If you are saying that you're going to help children from poor family get good education, let it not be attached to a condition that they may not be able to achieve. For example, you are saying that people should pay a registration fee of 5,000 to be considered in that particular CSR activity. That one will simply mean that those only who can avoid that will be taken into consideration. Then we also have what we call another ethical implication is the Footloose sponsor. And this is a company which does not have a long-term or considered policy by which to take opportunities as they arise. It can create some what we call legal problems or ethical problems. Footloose sponsor, these are people that, now before we go to Footloose sponsor, we also have over-reliance. Now Footloose sponsor is totally different from over-reliance on sponsors. For example, a Footloose sponsor is a person who wants to conduct a CSR activity. Maybe, for example, he says this, I want to take 500 girls or 500 boys and girls who completed their Form 4, and I want to pay for them university until they graduate. Those are 4 years. Then he starts the CSR activities kicks on very well. It kicks on very well. The children are taken to the school or to their universities of their choices, and the sponsor sponsors them. Lakini saa zile wanafika around Form 4, not Form 4, second year, the sponsor lacks money to sponsor or to continue sponsoring them. So these children, they drop out from the university because the sponsor is not able to do what? Carry on with his sponsoring program. That one we call him a Footloose sponsor. Ameshindwa kuendelea na sponsorship program. That one is an ethical, it's an ethical issue because number one, it poses what we call a negative image towards your organization. Number two, it also leaves the parents of the children at a very awkward position, and so on and so forth. Then we also have favoritism and cherry picking. It's another ethical issue. And when you talk about favoritism and cherry picking, we are saying this, that whenever you are coming up with a CSR program, stop focusing on some kids from a certain community. Like, for example, the way what we call Equity Wings to Fly does, it is inclusive. It includes everybody as long as you are a Kenyan. Whether you come from Loitoktok, whether you come from Nairobi, whether you come from Machakos, or whether you come from this area called what? Garissa, Wajir, Moyale, it doesn't matter where you come from, as long as you are a Kenyan. But there are some CSR activities you'll find they are targeting only Murang'a County from a specific location, but not from, it is not inclusive of all the children or not inclusive of all the people in Murang'a. Like the way you receive your bursary, we know the government gives bursary. That bursary is inclusive. As long as you are a Kenyan, you can get a bursary where you are, from which county you come from. you can get a bursary. Now, the bursary should not be taken as if we want children from a specific tribe, or we want children from a specific location. Those are the ones we are going to give bursary. Then that one is favoritism and cherry picking. You're only picking children from a certain community or from a certain tribe, and so on and so forth. Then there is also what we call over-reliance on sponsor. Now, over-reliance on sponsor comes from the person receiving the services or the CSR program. For example, you'll find that if you have a sponsor who will be sponsoring a certain program, I'm also going to give an example of children who finished their Form 4, and there is a sponsor here who wants to sponsor those less fortunate kids to go to university. So you find that people rely on them even to buy for them uniform, to cater for lunch, to cater for transport, even to go to school. You over-rely on the sponsor on everything, including doing shopping for your kids. That one is over-reliance on sponsor, and it is not ethical. At least do something for your kid. The sponsor has paid school fees for you. He has made sure that he has ensured that he's going to pay for the accommodation. He has made sure that he's going to do shopping every month or every after 2 weeks. And now you rely on them even to pay for the trip. Maybe the school, they'll be going for a trip. You are even relying on the sponsor to pay for your children's trip, and so on and so forth. I hope that one is understood. We also have dubious associations. This is another ethical consideration. You find that so many organizations, they do dubious associations, or they are associated into dubious things. And they do CSR to hide themselves. So utapata ya kwamba, like for example, there is a very big church, and this church, it sponsors people. It sponsors musicians, it sponsors books, or it sponsors publications. But behind the scene, they are engaged into dubious associations. Like for example, they smuggle drugs, they do child trafficking, they do what else? All those things. So they are doing, or they are using CSR to hide their activities. So those are what we call dubious associations. Also, we have letting others off the hook. Letting others hook. So one criticism of charitable donation is that they take the place of proper provision. Similar criticism can be leveled at corporate community involvement, especially when it's seen as an alternative way providing welfare services or essential equipment. Companies need to consider ethical implication of providing goods and services as an act of charity. In that provision, it's deemed to be fundamental to both the citizens. So the purpose of raising this ethical implication is not to disintegrate or to denigrate way in which the company fulfills their CSR, but both companies and the society in which they operate need to understand what they are doing and why. You need to understand why an organization is doing what it is doing and why. That is letting others off the hook. Let the people know why you are doing what you are doing and why you are doing it. Don't just come and tell us we are going to sponsor young athletes or young footballers between the age of, for example, 7 and 14. And you're not telling us why you are doing it. We need to be told, why are you sponsoring them? Of course, their lives is going to be better. Why are you doing it? Sababu sisi wa Kenya, ukisikia tu kuna sponsorship mahali, unakimbilia tu kujaza form. You don't know why it is done. It's good, the organization, to provide full information about why they are engaging themselves into a CSR activity. And you, as the citizen of this particular nation, it is upon you to inquire why you want to sponsor that. Why? And you must be given full details. Kia tu tunaenda abroad, tuna sponsor young athletes or young footballers waende US wakacompete. Wewe hata utaki kufikiria kitu ingine as long as wanaenda US. So it is good to question such activities. Because life is very difficult, you find that people want to fly abroad. As long as they are getting into a plane, that is one thing. So any question up to that point? Any question? Rita, is there any question? Rita Umami. Rita, you don't want to speak. Is there any question up to that point? Today we have looked at CSR. We have looked at the concept of CSR. We have looked at what we call the principles? We've looked at the concepts of CSR, and we've also looked at importance of CSR. We've looked at what else? We've looked at ethical implications of CSR. Yes, I think that one is okay. That one is enough at your level. Any question? If there is no question, you need to know this. Next week, we are going to have our Cat 1. Next week, we are going to have our Cat 1. So be prepared. Be prepared for that Cat. There is a discussion on the portal, and there is also a quiz on the portal. Kindly do the quiz, because after doing the quiz, it's when your attendance will do what? Will taken. If you fail to do the quiz, attendance will not be taken. If you fail to do the discussion forum, attendance will not be taken. So just do the necessary. So unless there is a question, I will stop at that place. At that point, enable you to the activities that are waiting for you. All those activities are open as we speak. All those activities are open on the portal as we speak. Kama hakuna swali, tuonane next week. Enjoy your weekend.